Teaching the fish to Synchro Summon is actually an exceptionally simple endeavor. It begins with a 45-step Goatee combo. On your opponent's turn, you can activate the effect of Paces. Next, you'll chain the effect
This is boring. Can we look at Rescue Ace combos?
Would you please shut up? Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-Minute Testing. As I've explained before, once a month, I entrust the power to my Patreon in deciding what I should take a look at for 10-minute testing. So far, they've knocked it way inside the park. And I'm reticent to report that they've done it again, asking for me to take a look at the least meta monsters in the newest deck build pack, Rescue Ace. So, here's that.
Start the new rescue helicopter. Hey!
So here's the list. As always, I'll give you a background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and of course, the card by card. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck just got a huge redesign, but it's still the #1 place to go for a pack simulator, a card database, and a wealth of strategy articles. I personally use the site to post every 10-minute testing list and every Chalice Slime Monthly Top Cut entry. Give it a look at www.ygoprodeck.com. So with that, let's see if we can rescue Ace. Rescue Ace is a series of firefighter monsters that are Drytron levels of difficult to differentiate. No, you don't understand. This one is a mess of yellows and reds, not a mess of reds and yellows. The Rescue Aces can be subdivided into 2 different categories of monster. Ones that add cards to your hand, then can be tributed as a quick effect from your hand or field to summon a Rescue Ace from somewhere else, and ones that can be special summoned if another Rescue Ace is normal or specialed. These monsters really do feel like a tight-knit team that's always got each other's backs, even if things get tough. And trust me, they're gonna get tough. This deck aims to make Rescue Ace Turbulence early and often, as it allows you to set up to 4 of their associated back row from your deck to your side of the field. That's right, they have a card that's a literal +3. If you're counting at home, that's a monster analogous to Hearthstone's Mysterious Challenger, near infinite access to any of the monster lineup at any given time, and half the archetype is hand traps on top of playmakers. It would take a catastrophe for cards this cracked to end up crappy, right? So with that, let's get into the card by card. Surprising no one, we're playing the Bystials, 3 Magnemite, and 3 Druiswurm. We're also playing a significant amount of Rescue Aces, 3 Hydrant. While you control a Rescue Ace monster that is not Hydrant, your opponent can target this card for attacks or with card effects. Each of the following effects are hard once per turn, so you can activate a quick play spell card or trap card set by a Rescue Ace the turn it was set, and during your main phase you can add a Rescue Ace from your deck to your hand. We're also playing 3 copies of Rescue Ace Air Hoister, the only other card good enough to warrant the entire playset. If it's normal or special summoned, you can add a Rescue Ace spell from your deck to your hand, and when your opponent activates a monster effect on the field as a quick, you contribute this card from your hand or field to summon a Rescue Ace monster from your hand, except for Air Hoister. After that, we've got a bunch of 2-ofs. 2 Rescue Ace Fire Engine. If a Rescue Ace monster other than Fire Engine is normal or special to your field, you can special this from your hand, and if a monster is special summoned to your opponent's field, you can specially level 4 or lower Rescue Ace monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard. 2 copies of Rescue Ace Fire Attacker. If a Rescue Ace monster other than Fire Attacker is normal or special, you can special this card from your hand, and if a card is added to your opponent's hand except by drawing it, you can draw 2 and then discard 1. We're on 2 copies of Rescue Ace Intruder. If this card is normal or special, you can add a Rescue Ace Trap from your deck to your hand, and if your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, you contribute this card from your hand or field, target a Rescue Ace monster in your graveyard, and special summon it. Finally, we're on 2 copies of Rescue Ace Impulse, which during your main phase allows you to choose an effect monster your opponent controls with the highest attack, and neither player can activate that monster's effects on the field this turn. When your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, you contribute it from your hand or field to special a Machine Rescue Ace monster from your deck. Finally, we have Rescue Ace Turbulence. This card can be summoned by banishing 2 Rescue Ace cards from your graveyard, and then during your main phase, you can set up to 4 Rescue Ace quick play spells or normal traps with different names directly from your deck. If another card you control leaves the field by an opponent's card effect, you can target a card on the field and destroy it. Both of those are hard onces, but do you really need a +3 twice per turn? We've got 3 copies of Alert. This is a quick play spell that adds a Rescue Ace monster from your graveyard to your hand, or if you control Hydrant, from your deck to your hand instead. We've got 1 copy of Rescue, which targets a Rescue Ace monster in your graveyard or a monster in your opponent's graveyard if you've got the Hydrant and summons it to your field. We've got Rescue Ace Headquarters, which, while your opponent controls a monster, makes Rescue Ace monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense, and then during your main phase you can normal summon a Rescue Ace in addition to your normal summoner set. Once per turn, you can target 4 of your Rescue Ace cards that are banished during your graveyard, shuffle them into the deck, and draw a card so you can Turbulence again. 3 copies of Piri Res Mep, because we really need Hydrant. 3 copies of Pot of Prosperity, because we really basically need Hydrant, a Rhoda, a Called by the Grave, and a 1-for-1. We're on 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, and then 1 apiece of Contain, which, if you control a Rescue Ace monster, can target an effect monster your opponent controls. This turn, this effect monster can't attack, its effects are negated, and if you have Hydrant, it also can't be used as material for a Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link Summon, and Extinguish. If you control a Rescue Ace monster, you can target an effect monster your opponent controls, destroy it, and if you control Hydrant, your opponent can't activate the effects of the destroyed monster or monsters with that original name for the rest of the turn. In the side, we've got 3 copies of Evenly Matched, 3 copies of Dark Ruler, 3 copies of Lightning Storm, 3 copies of Dimensional Barrier, and 3 copies of Bestial Serenir in a side deck that I'm calling super interesting. The extra is a little saucy. We've got a Sky Thunder, a Thunder Charger, a Tolmi M7, and a Wallow. We've also got Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. This is one of the few decks with room in the extra to play Zealantis, Access Code Talker, Nightmares Unicorn and Phoenix, Dark the Dark Charmer Gloomy, Heat of the Fire Charmer Ablaze, Ausa the Earth Charmer Immovable, Geonator Transverser, IP Masquerena, and Ling Karibo. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Blue Eyes White Dragon. Okay, temper your expectations. If this was a good deck, we would start against Mathmech or something, but it's not, so we have to beat up on a literal child, okay? And that's fine. We'll begin with a copy of Piri Res Map that's going to grab a Hydrant from deck to hand. Just kidding. Actually, just kidding about the just kidding. We've outskilled our opponent with the Called by the Grave in our opener. We'll grab a copy of Hydrant from deck to hand. We're going to normal summon the Hydrant and use its effect to grab an Air Hoister. Afterwards, going to fire off an Alert and use it to grab a free special before going into Link Karibo. And is that 2 Rescue Aces in the graveyard? Down comes Turbulence, down comes Fire Attacker, and let's go ahead and set 4 cards. Our opponent's going to start and... All right. They're going to lead with Alternative White, which is shocking to me because it allows us to go Extinguish, which is very nice. They'll special summon a Dictator of D and then fire off this Harpy's Feather Duster, which does trigger the Turbulence and allows us to destroy that. They'll conclude their turn with a Melody of Awakening Dragon, but they only have 1 target left, and it is Blue Eyes with Jet Dragon. We'll trigger the effect of the Fire Attacker, and we should be able to win here. We're going to normal summon this Air Hoister. That's going to grab us the field spell. We'll activate Headquarters, and then we'll use our extra normal summon after shuffling 4 cards back into our deck. We're going to go ahead and get that Bestial on field as well, and this should be well over lethal, but I am styling just a little bit. It pays to be toxic when you're playing a deck this bad. Let's go for Turbulence, live the +3 dream one more time, and then proceed to combat, dealing well over lethal damage. Our second match is up against Sky Striker. Good luck without Mystic Mine, fool. We're going to begin with the Pot of Prosperity, finding off the top. Okay, we'll get the free special. We're going to fire off this copy of 1-for-1 in order to summon from deck a copy of Hydrant. Then afterwards, going to activate the hand effect of the Fire Attacker and the field effect of Hydrant in order to grab a Turbulence. We'll make an IP Masquerena and 2 in the graveyard. Don't mind if I do. We'll fire off the effect of the Turbulence. Thankfully, they don't have negation. And 4 in the back row. I don't set the Called by because the Fear of God is in me after seeing that Harpy's Feather Duster last game. Maybe I should have. We're going to go for the Rescue here in response to the Area 0. They're going to chain Shark Cannon. We're going to chain Alert. And then at Resolution, they're going to fire off a Multi-Roll. That Multi-Roll is going to target this Area 0, and they'll activate the effect of the Area 0 in order to grab a Ray and proceed to the battle phase. They're going to attack into the Masquerena and activate Ray to go into a Hayate. They're going to attack with Hayate. We're going to chain Extinguish. Then we're going to chain Magnamut targeting the Ray. They chain Druis Worm targeting their own Ray, which is... completely fine. That's the exact same outcome. They'll set 2 and pass back to us. We should be able to clean this one up. We'll activate Turbulence. Okay. They Forbidden Droplet, and I shotgun the Called by here. I think that I just thought that it would negate the Forbidden Droplet. I don't really know what the plan was. We're going to go for a copy of Pot of Prosperity. We're running out of cards in the extra deck. We're just going to do it for a couple here, and we do find a Rescue Ace. We'll get in for a fair amount of damage, but these are all hand traps, so I guess we'll just pass back to our opponent, who draws probably the best card in their deck. They're going to go Widow Anchor here, targeting Turbulence and Chain Linkage to go into Hayate. We're going to activate Contain in order to get this Hayate's effect offline, which will prevent the Hayate from sending what I'm really scared of, which is an Engage. And then in main phase 2, we'll activate the effect of the Magnamut, get it onto the field, activate its field effect. Our opponent's going to reset off of Multi-Roll, and we'll resolve the effect of the Magnamut. We're going to get a Druis Worm to hand, and Alert's a pretty good draw. We'll go ahead and fire off the Alert in order to get the Turbulence back, then bring it back to the field, and then get the Fire Engine online, activate Turbulence, and be hit with the Widow Anchor we know is lurking. No big deal. That gets banished, and now we are free to attack into the Hayate. They are going to send a copy of Engage, but no big deal. They have no way to get to it. They'll use Multi-Roll to set this copy of Shark Cannon, and then Linkage, and they sent a card, but because it didn't go to the graveyard, they weren't able to actually make the monster in the EMZ. Both of us are playing very well this game. We're going to go for a Fire Engine in response to the Kagari. They do get the Engage online finally. They're going to grab an Afterburner. They Afterburner our Turbulence, but we've just got too much stuff. They're going to go for Zeke. They'll activate the Zeke effect. We will chain Impulse. That's going to get us a Fire Attacker. That guy's going to go to the Banished Zone, and then Shizuku is going to resolve in the end phase, grabbing a copy of Hornet Drones, but that should be all she wrote. We do have a Druis Worm, so we can get that off the field very nicely. We're going to go for the Druis Worm, targeting the Ray, summon it, link it off so we can trigger its graveyard effect and send the Shizuku, and after 10 million years, we have probably find the line to lethal. We're going to go for Impulse, summon Fire Engine. We'll make a copy of Access Code Talker, access code, target this copy of Dark, go to the battle phase, and okay, see, we won, which meant that we played perfectly the entire time. So it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's playing What Else is Shizu Tearlament. They've opened Havness, but we're going first. Let's see what comes of it. This hand's pretty good. We're going to begin with a copy of Hydrant. We'll activate Hydrant, they'll chain Havness, we'll chain Alert, and we're off to the races. That Havness is going to mill 3, including a Sulliek and a Kelbeck. You're kidding me. Alright, Kelbeck's going to mill 5, and then we'll see what happens. They hit 2 names, unfortunately, which means this Druis Worm does not contest it, but it will contest the Kitkalos Send, which is maybe enough. We'll go for Impulse here in response to the Kitkalos to get a copy of Fire Engine, and then they're going to send a copy of Merly to the graveyard. We'll special summon this attacker. They'll trigger Merly. We'll trigger Druis Worm, targeting the Merly, and then we should be free to play our turn. They're going to call Dark on Mudragon. We'll go for Turbulence here, then activate the Turbulence later in the turn in order to get 4 cards to our back row. We're going to make Wallow with 2 6s, and then go ahead and rescue out our Impulse to make an IP Masquerena. Hopefully this is enough. Unfortunately, in draw, we have to fire off the Extinguish, because otherwise they can activate in main phase the effect of the Kitkalos. We're going to alert as early as possible. Our opponent's going to chain Mudragon. We'll chain Contain so that the Havness's effect is negated, and because we have a Hydrant, it can't be used as fusion material. They're going to have to hit well. We go for Wallow in response to their effect activation. They're going to chain Keldo here in order to shuffle it back, but it still accomplishes what we want, which is no fusions hitting the board. They normal summon Merly, and we just needed one fewer thing. We're going to go for one of our hand trap effects, but they have a called by for it as well, because it's now their turn, and they should be... What the heck? Why are they playing this card? Okay, they're going to set a Sulliek and pass. That's pretty devastating for us. Until I draw a Called By off the top, we'll go to the battle phase and attack into the Havness. They'll activate Sulliek. They'll send the Havness to the graveyard. We'll chain Called By the grave. We've somehow equalized this board state. I'm really confused as to how it's happened. We'll attack into the Underworld Goddess with our copy of Turbulence and pass back to our opponent, but unfortunately... that's the best 2-card sequence of cards they could possibly pull. They're on 2 Kitkalos, so they do get to summon out off the instant fusion, and they've got the Unicorn as well. They're going to activate the Kitkalos effect, cycling it for the Merly. They're going to mill 8, and I guess in the interest of sportsmanship, we should sit through this one. I mean, it's pretty much over. They're going to activate the effect of the Kelbeck and the Crime. They'll trigger the effect of the Havness in graveyard in order to make Kaleido Heart, and they'll trigger the effect of the Sheeran in graveyard to make a Rukalos. Kaleido Heart will spin our copy of Gaia Dragon, and this is very well over lethal. Oh, come on, you don't have to do that. So it's time for game 2, and while our opponent has many powerful cards in their hand, they aren't going first, and they have no hand traps. We could make this happen. We're going to go Air Hoister into Fire Attacker. Afterwards, we're going to add the field spelled hand. We'll go into a Masquerade, and that's 2 in the graveyard for Turbulence. We'll activate the effect of the Turbulence after setting the field spell. We'll set 4 into the back row. Feeling good about this, setting Alert, and passing back to our opponent. They draw for turn. They're going to begin with a copy of Tearlament Scream. They're going to normal summon a Merly. They'll activate the Merly, chain the effect of the Scream, and then mill 6 cards off the top of their deck, including a Havness and a Kelbeck. We will Druis Worm targeting the Havness. They're going to Mudora. That's 1 name down, only 2 more to worry about. They're going to go ahead and send a whole bunch of cards to the graveyard, activate Sulliek, and oh my god, Kelbeck solos. Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize this. Kelbeck the Ancient Vanguard can summon itself and bounce a monster on our side of the field, and if that monster is our Turbulence and our only Rescue Ace monster, our entire back row is offline. Oh, no. Okay, they're just going through the motions here. They're going to activate the graveyard effect of Sheeran. That's going to shuffle back the Kitkalos to go into Rukalos. They're going to go to Sprind. They haven't activated the graveyard effect of Merly yet this turn. They're going to activate Merly in order to go into, I don't know, Garua. They'll proceed to the battle phase, get over for 11, direct for 3, and that's going to be all she wrote. That's, just depressing. Just depressing. No other word for it. So we're back with the deck, and yeesh, that went down in flames. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1. This deck lives and breathes board presence. Like Tearlament, the hand trap monsters enable them to make powerful boards even on their opponent's turn. 2. I cannot explain to you the rush of endorphins you are going to feel if you ever successfully live the +4 dream and set every named back row from your deck. It's like nothing you've ever experienced. And 3. Their biggest playmaker is a Fire Hydrant. Sometimes Yu-Gi-Oh! Is just beautiful. And the cons. 1. The back row isn't good enough. Yes, setting 4 is sick, but only 2 of them actually do anything useful at stopping your opponent, and that's nowhere near enough to keep up with the modern metagame. 2, to live the +4 dream, you kind of have to play a lot of spells and traps. It's sort of like Magispector in that it's really easy to brick on the cards you want to search rather than fighting the monsters that search them. And 3, calling the quick effect guy's hand traps was a bit of a misnomer. Havness into Kitkalos immediately makes a negate. These guys just sit there until your turn starts again. All in all, it's definitely got a lot of potential, but it's going to need some extremely good support before you'd be happy to hear these guys on the other end of an emergency line. Thanks so much for watching. A big shouts out to all of my patrons, but specifically Elena Tincher, Alex Dominguez, Alex Perea, Allison Elliott, BB Poison, Big Game Home Video, Brett Henry, Chaotic Meatball, Crispy, Daniel Liu, Dank Magician of Chaos, TJ Elephant, Going Down Swinging, Grant Curry, Indiana Petra, John Piet, Jordan Kuntz, King Magic Ruler, Night Mary, Lilypod, Lockstone, Materiality, MBT Play Madolce, Megalith is Fake Goth, Mike Carlotti, NH6574, Rose Lapine, Sarah Rutledge, Solar Flare, Tolarian 101, Troy Says Bi Erasure is Gay, Wave Motion Ganon, and Wonder Waffle. I couldn't have done it without you.